So it is my pleasure. I've been a big fan of Nancy Giordano for about a decade of living in Austin, and I'm excited now that I can not only call myself a fan, but increasingly becoming a friend, which is the best way to work. She's absolutely brilliant and has done a lot, not just for Austin, but for the world. As a futurist, talking about what's coming next in very confusing areas where everyone is just up in arms, and she is here today at my great pleasure. And so without further ado, Nancy Giordano.
Thank you. So I will assume that those of you who are sitting here are both optimists and people who really are looking around the corner at something that is not visible yet, because that's what this conversation is about. So thank you guys for being here. This slide basically says it all. First, I'm not a technologist. I am a futurist. So the question, there was just someone just asked me a really brilliant tech question of which I will have no answer to. So I'm not a programmer. This is not my world. But I come at it from a really different lens, and this is why I'm excited about it and why I've become a big champion and why I've worked with this team for many years, probably also 8 or 10 years, and why I think it's important. Really, there's just one thing I want y'all to take away from this, which is that there is an alternative to blockchain, right? We can talk about why it matters. We can talk about how it works to some extent. I can give you some points of view on it. I have a bunch of slides that I will be leaning on as a result. But really, it's about just to open up capacity, that there is another way of thinking about this that will provide tremendous opportunity for those who want to build a more scalable, resilient future. All righty? I was like, it's really loud in there. Is it? That's just how it goes?
Text the folks in the front to shush it up.
Or to buy me a drink.
Yeah.
One or the other. All right.
They're free, don't worry. You want a drink? Mimosa? You want a mimosa?
Okay, thank you guys. Afterwards, tequila. So there was, I was a little stressed out about giving this talk because I am not a technologist talking to a technology crowd. But what I think is important is to recognize that what you see depends on the door that you're walking through, right? So some people come into this world as a financial guru or an innovator on one side, or a systems liberator, which I would call the libertarians. I was trying to think of a nice way of describing the libertarian sect. You just want to blow up the systems that exist. As a tech investor, as a comp sci guru, right, who can really see how to leverage the technologies that are coming. As a practical theorist, or actually, so I should say political theorist, a social structure innovator, a community innovator, or me, the strategic futurist. So this is really coming through this lens and through the problems that I see that I'm trying to solve. Chelsea, is it slow? Okay, so here's the deal. As I look at the future, my job is to go help organizations, individuals, industries understand what the future needs and expects of them, and what their unique position to create and contribute to that. I've worked with big, huge Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 100 companies. I helped start an artificial intelligence company. I built a conference about the 7 most disruptive technologies for business because I wanted businesses to be prepared. I'm really worried that people don't understand what's about to hit, and they're not fully both either awake to it or have the capacity to engage in it. So my work right now is very much to ensure a safe future by letting people know what's coming and be able to, again, harness the resources, the learning, the capacities, the collective in order to be able to thrive. So when I look around the corner, these are the things that I get nervous about, right? And I think that many of us are nervous around. Digital privacy, data security, the concentration of both wealth and access, and the need, obviously, for more inclusion and participation. Fragile systems that I worry will not be able to hold the load of what is expected as we're coming through. Cost barriers, and I will say to exponential or radical innovation, right? To create an app that has an exponential effect, which means you have to have a lot of storage capacity and a lot of money to be able to go do that, and a way to be able to get to that money. And often we give away a lot of our companies and our intellectual gifts and properties by doing that. So there's a way, I wish that there were a way to be able to make that more effective so people would jump into the game and solve bigger problems. Serious problems with interoperability. I just gave a talk to a bunch of CIOs and interviewed a few of them, and it's not that they don't see what's coming, but it's really hard to get this portion of the ecosystem to talk to that portion of the ecosystem and talk to this portion of it. And trying to figure out how to make those systems work when you're uniting or merging or growing is a challenge. And then the fancy word of mutual sovereignty, but individual agency, the fact that we have choice, right? The things that aren't just chosen for us and dictated for us, that we're both aware of the choices and we actually have capacity to make them. So I probably could go on that list even longer, but when you look at poor Zuckerberg, right, and the few months he's had, and the mea culpas that keep coming out of the Facebook world, which is I think is ridiculous. We are setting ourselves up for systems in which we're going to have a lot more of that, right? And this idea of I didn't know, and I don't take, gosh, we didn't anticipate that, I think will start to get really tiresome, and we'll have to think about it differently. So I actually first stumbled upon all this through a project called the Metacurrency Project. So this is going to, again, now this is a futurist view, a more conceptual view, a less of a technology view. This comes from the people who are really trying to figure out a way to build a more resilient society, literally to reorchestrate our economic models and the way in which we coordinate with one another. So if you're interested in that, just Google the Metacurrency Project. Many projects have come out of that, including a rethink of education, a rethink of leadership, et cetera. But one of the biggest focuses is on technology, right? How can we harness the technology innovations in order to build a more thriving society? So the first real, I think, delivery of that is Holochain. So Holochain, my friends, is a platform for truly distributed apps and computing to more effectively foster social coordination. Notice I did not say to make a ton of money. Notice I didn't say to blow up the banking system. Notice I say to be able to run my dark web services. Maybe that's possible on all these things too, but we're coming at it from a really different lens. We want people to be able to coordinate more effectively and need the tools to be able to do that. And related to that is an ecosystem that we're building, and part of that is something called Holo. Holo will be an app that comes off of Holochain. I'll talk more about it in a moment, but it's really the best way to think about it as a bridge between a centralized world and a decentralized world, right? Having two worlds that are sort of parallel but unable to talk to each other is also not a great solution. So we're figuring out a way to be able to connect the worlds. So now I'm going to take you through a little ride on Holochain. And I'll be interested in the questions that you ask, not because I can answer them, because I'm curious what will arise for you that we can make sure you get the answers to. All right? So Holochain is the way we describe it is we're trying to build a more human internet, a lofty goal. But in some ways, we're flipping it inside out, right? Why? Because we have a much bigger why than most do. We are, again, trying to enable more effective social coordination at any scale. So whether it's a small group of people or whether it is societally, on the scale of a Facebook or on the scale of a Twitter, that is what we're trying to do, but in a way, again, that creates more agency, creates more privacy, creates resiliency, creates all those things. And the way we're doing is by putting humans at the center versus data at the center or an application at the center. So the way I describe it, my simple brain, is we're like flipping the internet inside out and building a completely different way of structuring the internet. So when my buddy Arthur, who started the Metacurrency Project and one of the leads in Holochain, explained this to me years ago, my mind went, why? Because I didn't think it was possible. I had no idea that you could restructure the internet, that there was a way of building this differently. So when I look at that list of mounting issues, I don't get scared. I know that there are solutions that were coming that are going to be able to fix that, and it isn't just about putting another control on a Facebook app or being able to, petition for something in the world of Twitter or even in the world of net neutrality, right? There are systems that we may just work around and build completely different tunnels through and under. So for me, this gets really exciting because there's a way in which we're orienting it, which is quite different. The innovations that are driving this, right, is to think about this in terms we are agent-centric versus data-centric or token-centric. So we're building it from a different point of view. We'll talk a little bit again to the extent that we have time, and I can answer the questions, but multi-perspective versus mono-perspective. So this idea of all getting to consensus, taking a photo in time, and deciding that this is the only worldview, and letting go of all history and all multiple perspectives, which is the way I understand that blockchain is built. Interestingly, I don't really understand blockchain because that's not the world I'm coming from, right? I'm coming through this other doorway. But the way blockchain is built is very different than the way Holochain is built. Each application, oops, let's back up. We're giving away all the goodies. Each application has its what we're call own holochain, its own source chain. So rather than being all put into the center, right, and having to have all that machinery and all that energy and all that horsepower go against consensus, we have truly distributed it and put it so that each person will hold their own data. And here's to me that's really exciting. It is lightweight enough, right, that anyone can be a full participant. There isn't a difference between minors and non-minors or people who are sort of at one center of it versus the other. This is built with a technology that I excite, again, those who get it will dig into and I think will be really excited about, that allows it to be so lightweight and so scalable, and here's the deal, 10,000 times cheaper than blockchain. So imagine that you have the capacity now to build something without a jackhammer, but with a hammer. Right? What will you do and what will you build when it is that much lighter weight, that much more flexible, that much more scalable, and significantly cheaper? So you've all seen these models, right? There's a centralized model, and there's a decentralized model, and there's a distributed model. What's interesting for us, and the part, again, that excites us, another benefit of this isn't just distributed, it's distributed and interoperable. We're able to take different systems, different ecosystems, and hook them together because of the way that this is built. That has, again, tremendous innovation. My friend Matthew Schutte, who goes around the world talking about this, will talk about, when you think about in nature, there are interoperable ecosystems, right? There's a way in which the sun creates grass, and there is a way in which the cow then eats the grass, and there is a thing that the cow then gives to the rest of the world in terms of energy. But those are different ecosystems that are all linked together in a way that is mutually beneficial, creates regeneration, creates flow, and creates benefit for all of us. So we're looking at ways in which right now we can do that because we think that things are stuck, right? We're here trying to increase flow and increase possibility. Whoops, and there go my notes. Thank you. So for us, it's about removing the bottlenecks, right, and really allowing that flow to be created. Thanks, Chelsea. So for those of you who are really like, okay, what the hell is this, and how is it compared to blockchain? We do have those comparisons. I won't necessarily go through all of this, and I'm sorry that the type is really small for a room like this. Think about this in terms of this deck will be available, or we can make sure that you get the information. But it's not like we can't talk about it. But really differences between centralized network consensus versus a distributed network for individualized validation. This is what allows it to be faster, what allows it to be lighter weight, what allows it to be more interoperable. This is the big, giant innovation, right? Whatever the holographic storage thing is that Arthur and the gang have figured out, it's just a totally different way of being able to hold and share information. One of our concerns is, right, in the blockchain world, 99.9% of the data that is created is discarded. Here, we're holding on to that data. It's about understanding the history and the relationships, just like you do in the real world with real people, right? You benefit from that knowledge. Here, the network must update in unison. Here, we do it in parallel instead of unison. Here, interestingly, trust is network-wide, right? We have outsourced trust from a person to the entire network. In our world, trust is generated, again, on an individual basis, but through a different kind of technological solution. Mono perspective versus multi-perspective. And if you just want to think about why that's beneficial, just imagine, again, if you only had one eye versus two eyes, right? With one eye, you can see a certain amount. With two eyes, you get to now have depth. You get to have a totally different binocular view of things. If you had multiple perspectives and they were all integrated, imagine what you could see. So that's part of what we're trying to do here. And again, data versus agent-centric. And we've got one of those wonderful charts. And of course, in our chart, again, we win on every dimension, and nobody else does. We are updating this because we do think that there are advantages to blockchain. There are certain things that it can do, really heavyweight financial transactions, I'm sure that maybe we won't end up carrying. So I think the world will potentially have room for both, although we do believe that once people become facile with Holochain and they understand the advantages that it has, again, in scalability and affordability, it will make blockchain seem too heavy to work with on a regular basis for so many of the innovations that you guys are trying to create. This whole day is about thinking about ways in which we can again, move humankind forward, fix systems that don't work. I love the conversation about the fact that instead of trying to solve 20th century problems, we can solve 21st century problems. This is where we're headed. So the question is, what tool will enable you to do that? One that has, hopefully, these advantages, right, versus the others. So now let me talk again about Holo. So Holochain is totally open source. It'll be a platform that anyone can build on. It doesn't have a mysterious founder. I can tell you exactly who the founders are. But it is operating in the same way that anybody who understands the technology can build with it. So we have another piece of it, one of the first apps out of it called Holo. So Holo, if you think about it, is distributed storage. I think about taking all those big giant server farms and chopping them all up and giving us all, again, now access to our own data in a way to be able to hold that data and to be able to host others who don't want to necessarily be holding their data but would like to be able to be part of a shared network. The other big advantage of Holo is that it allows, again, for someone to not have to fully be in the distributed world to benefit from a distributed app. It allows you to connect to a centralized world and still be able to play with the distributed advantages. So what we have done, actually, again, the way we talk about it is imagine an internet where everyone can explore without feeling, again, that they have a lot of tech know-how. That you're rewarded for bringing user-controlled apps to mainstream. So there is a cryptocurrency component to this, in which when I use my excess capacity, either on my phone, on my computer, on my tablet, or I buy a Holo port, which is an external version, to be able to add more capacity, I'm able to be rewarded through a cryptocurrency called Holo Fuel. And it's community-minded, right? We are very much about, again, giving the community agency access, horsepower to be able to create the solutions that we think we need and not have it be all locked up by a different resource. or centralized resource. So again, if we describe Holo as a fully distributed application hosting platform, which we describe as putting the cloud in the hands of users, where the crowd is the cloud, right? We become the cloud. Again, as a person who's a lot of empowering, society and individuals, like I get very excited about that, right? My stuff doesn't have to all flow through. I actually looked up photos of server farms, and man, they're gigantic. They're in the middle of the Arctic. They're polluting everything, and we've got issues about cost and surveillance and all kinds of other, and resilience, safety. The fact that we will actually all be able to have that in our own little hands is super exciting to me. And then we're building, an ecosystem and innovating by design. So we're holding hackathons all over the world right now. A lot of them have been in Europe. We will be holding one in Austin in May, which I'll tell you about at the end. But the question is, what will be built for this? And everyone keeps asking about the use cases and about the applications. Imagine when the internet was first being designed, did we know all the use cases that exist? Did we envision an Airbnb? Did we envision a Lyft? Do we envision the business applications that are already at our fingertips? So we don't know all the places that we will go. Some of the things that people are playing with and are excited about is a distributed version of Twitter. So there'll be all kinds of distributed versions of the current apps that exist. Holochat, which is a multi-room peer-to-peer chat, sort of like a distributed Slack. A fractal wiki, a hierarchical wiki. I'll just read those words. And then CoinToss, which is an app for trustable random initiation. So again, what we're doing is letting people play with this. It's very lightweight. The first release right now is called the Adventurers release. This already exists. This isn't conceptual. This isn't pie in the sky. All that work was done, again, 10 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago. This is now in action. People are using it, which is why I'm excited again about sharing it with you guys who are on the front end and want to start playing with this. Corporations are looking at this. Lots of different entities are curious about this and want to get more experience with it. So what is an ecosystem built on both the Holochain and Holo combo allow for? Again, I'll just reiterate the same points, right? You can control your data. You can choose whom you want to share it with and how. Obviously, once it gets out into the world, like just when I say a word to you, I can't take that word back necessarily, but I can choose who I want to share those words with. I can choose how much visibility I want to give someone into my data or into my world. Certainly, again, new types of applications with more flexibility of use and interoperability or interaction. Okay, here's the deal. Fast microtransactions that can handle credit card scale processing. This goes back to, again, in real time, the billions of transactions that will need to happen, and the fact that they will be able to be accounted for at fractions of a cent. So you think, again, about the cost right now of doing a blockchain or Bitcoin transaction is quite significant. If you can imagine doing that at a fraction of the cent, it allows for all kinds of other ways in which people can coordinate and create things together. So some of the things that people, so again, in summary, right? We're creating applications on Holochain that can be used to create distributed clones of existing technologies, to bootstrap emerging technologies, and to deliver on the promise of really true integration. Some of the things that folks envision that could exist, I'm not sure if this is in development or if these are just thoughts that came out of the various hackathons, but a rideshare app that's run by riders and drivers without a corporation in the middle dictating the terms. And again, Holo hosts would get paid for helping host a website where anyone can book a ride. Emergency responders that are able to coordinate in the immediate aftermath of a disaster without needing to connect to a central source or server, and can run on a mesh network, which also, again, we go back to resiliency is a big part of this, right? Safety is a big part of this. Or a community of rural homeowners that have a whole plethora of renewable energy sources that they share with one another. So you might have the turbine, and I have the solar panel, and somebody else has another piece of the grid, and we're able to share that in a way in which we're able to keep track of it in a very thoughtful and smart way. So it enables those kinds of micro real-time transactions. Again, sky's the limit. It'll be funny when we look at this 5 years from now and go, wow, that's as far as our imagination went. Imagine what's really possible now. Again, just in terms of, just so y'all know that this is really happening. This is a development timeline. This is where we are. It might be off by a month or two here and there, but for the most part, we're on schedule. I forgot to mention that for Holo, we did a crowdfunding campaign. It was fully funded within, I think, 72 hours. We're now at, whatever, close to 300% funded. It is still open. You can still buy access. You can buy a Holo port. I think it was for $99. You can buy access to developer services or developer workshops, one-on-one consulting and that sort of thing. And we're using that, obviously, to raise money to continue the development of this. We want to be able to hire the really great engineers who can pull us all together. We've got really great hardware partners who have built the Holo port. So we're excited already about the enthusiasm and the interest that has existed through the Indiegogo campaign. I'll talk a little bit more about the other fundraising sources, but just so you know, we're going to be hopefully releasing the Holo ports. I want to say, I think the prototypes of them are coming out in spring, so people will be able to have them hopefully by the end of the year or beginning of next. All right, so how do people want to play in this if you're not a developer? Where's the financial side of this, right? And it's interesting, again, the founder, Arthur Brock, has written a lot about this. We do use the word ICO, but for us, it's an initial community offering versus a coin offering. And it's built on, again, on a really different set of principles that we describe as an ethical CIO. I won't go through all of those, but really think about it again. We're trying to fix some of the problems that we see existing in the current model of hoarding and being able to hold on to. We're trying to create flow. We're trying to create regeneration. We're trying to create solutions. So how do we build it in a way that is different? Right now, again, the Indiegogo campaign is 263% funded. We raised over $580,000. It's available to anyone, and it funds, again, the launch of the Holo ports. The initial community offering will be coming out at 25 million euro max. We really aren't trying to raise $1 zillion, even though people have come and really write like one big check to, apparently to the team, and that is not the way that this will be funded. It is only available outside of the US, and I think in Korea and some other countries that don't support this right now. Oh, there you go, South Korea, China. But for those who really have deep pockets and somehow do want to come play, there are now just launching an ecosystem incubator. So if you want to come build on Holochain and want to think about, again, the ways in which it could potentially have a bigger commercial application for you, there is now, to accredited investors only, an opportunity to go play in this arena. Just again, because the demand was there, we were trying to figure out a way to meet that demand that felt, again, consistent with our overall ethos and how this should work. And finally, I'll just say we're starting to get more press. There's been very, very little written about it right now, but there were 2 pieces that came out recently, one in Crypto Insider and one in Unblock magazine, which again, what could come after blockchain technology, the what and why of Holochain. We laugh because we feel like in some ways we've been around before blockchain, right? This has been in development for a long time. It's just now emerging. And the second is, again, a post-blockchain crypto world. What I think is cool is to sort of see the takeaway that they have as they delve into this technology. So better than I can explain it, what I think is interesting from here, from Tristan, was that more than all of this technical knowledge, however, the reason why I support Holochain is its community. It's both literally and figuratively a magical group of people. None of them seem to be there to get wealthy. All of them are passionate about building something better, of restoring the internet to its former glory before the behemoths sucked up all the value. And here, again, if you want to get more pragmatic, like this is isn't it awesome that we all want to hold hands and make the world a better place? But there is a reality. There's a practical reason that we care about this, and that enough people are tired of governmental and corporate innovations into their privacy and are looking for alternatives, but so far the tools for large-scale protection and coordination just haven't been available, and now they are. Like, that is worth smiling about, my friends. This is big news. This is exciting, right? And this is from Ritz, who has a significant visibility into what's happening and what's possible. So I do want to introduce you to the diversified and decentralized team, which I think is cool about this, is that it isn't a very monolithic-looking group, right? There's a lot of women involved. There's a lot of different ages involved. There's lots of different nationalities involved. There's lots of different backgrounds involved. Some come from community building. Some come as frustrated blockchain developers. Some come from the world of currency, but thinking about currency in a much more progressive way, not just in terms of dollars and euros, but thinking in terms of flow and currents that you can see, and how those, again, strengthen a community, a society, hopefully the world. And they're from all over the world. So the 2 I'll point out is Arthur, who should have a gold star, and Eric Harris Brown. They are really the 2 big heads and sort of thought leaders behind this, both philosophically and technologically. So I don't think Eric writes as much as Arthur does, but you can find a lot about what they have both written. And if you're in Austin or want to come to Austin, then in May, there's a conference here called Voice and Exit. Has anybody been to Voice and Exit? Y'all are like the perfect crowd for Voice and Exit. Voice and Exit was, this I think will be the 4th year in which it's running, and it continues to get more robust and more extraordinary. It's described as if Burning Man and Ted had a baby. They would have Voice and Exit. It is very thoughtful, but it is very provocative. It's about bringing ideas from the edge forward. So whether it's about seasteading or reinventing education or thinking about a world without nation states, that's the kind of conversation that happens here. It's also beautiful. There's a whole production piece to it and a beautiful party, very Burning Man-ish, that happens as a result. But Arthur will be speaking at that event in May, so I encourage you guys to come and hear that. There will be some other, I think, crypto conversations as well. And we are then, in coordination with that, going to create a hackathon. So for those who are interested in wanting to come and play with that, if you want to host it, if you want to support it, if you want to come develop, let me know, because that would be we're in that spot right now of developing an Austin community. Because I get frustrated, right? I see my friends all around the world doing this stuff, and I'm like, but there's things happening here, and we're not engaged, and I want us to be. So if we are going to be sort of part of the epicenter in the United States here in Austin for the crypto movement, like, can we get on the Holochain train as well and just play with it and see what you guys think? That would be my invitation to you all. So the final slide is, you know, if you want to take a picture here of the, oops, it's a little cut off. But if you care about the white paper, about the white listing for the ICO or technical papers or the hackathons, or follow us on any of the social media, we have a group conversation happening. It's not on here, actually, in a place called Mattermost. So there we are. Who feels more optimistic about the future now that they've invested 20 minutes in learning this? Yay.
Okay, good news is that this is a fantastic presentation. Bad news, we don't have a lot of time for questions. But you have such good questions, so let's do one and keep it really short.
And again, I likely will not be able to answer it, but I'll be able to pass it on to those who can, which will be very exciting. So I actually can take one from a woman and one from a man.
That's right.
So,
Okay. Yes, sir.
and just,
Is this open source? And
yeah.
can we find out all the other blockchains have trade-offs? Like you want speed, you give up security, things like
Right.
that. This doesn't appear to have any trade-offs, so I'd like to learn more.
I'm sure when you really dig in, there'll be something that frustrates you or disappoints you. At this point, I can't imagine what it is either. And certainly compared to the alternatives that exist now, it will solve a whole bunch of problems. But what will be interesting to see is what would be the thing that might, you know, what we're asking people to do right now is not build a really heavyweight, super secure, app on it. Let it get more robust, right? It needs to get built out more. So right now, it's about playing and trying with different community solutions for it. But see what you think. So I would go to whatever, there are plenty of technical papers. If you just go to holo.host or you go to holochain.org, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff. If you can't find it, then email me, Nancy at Playbig Inc., or Meg at holo.host, and we will make sure you get everything you ever want. There's tons that's been created already. There's videos. And I'm sorry, your name? I like knowing people's names. Thank you. And one more?
Kind of, like 30 seconds. So fast. Did you have a question? No. Okay. Sir, right next, and then we'll wrap it.
Oh, I just said one man, one vision. So, ambitious but great vision. I have a question on if you had any experience with building this is one thing, but the governance and keeping the ecosystem without the Twitter in the middle, like you spoke.
I know, right? It seems impossible. And yet this group...
I was curious if you had any experience.
I haven't personally, but Arthur has. He has built a lot of that already and is looking at ways in which they can scale that. And the other person, Matthew Schutte, has been thinking a lot about that as well. So they can answer why. And again, there's a lot of wonderful things that have been written. Like there's a great article that Arthur wrote about governance without government, right? I get excited about regulation without regulators. Like there'll be ways in which we'll still be able to stay safe and okay without having to outsource it all to someone in the middle that either we think has a capacity that they don't, or they will just be inundated and not be able to deal with the volume that's coming. So.
Great. Nancy, thank you so
Thanks.
much. Well done.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.